Welcome to another episode of SaaS Builders. I'm Jefferson, and I'm here today with a special guest, Erin from Easynet. Hi, how's it going?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you, Jefferson?
Good, doing good. Thanks for asking. So tell me a little bit more about who you are, what you're doing, and how's life?
Thanks. So, Erin McCune, I'm the co-founder and CEO for a company called Easynet, and it's EASEENET because we make your online life easy to see. And we help people and families organize and preserve their digital estate, and very much in that SaaS world and taking care of a piece that many people are just now realizing is a big gaping hole in their planning that they've done.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot about the digital asset legacy market. It's really growing. There was a recent report somewhere. It said it was like a $10 billion industry or something like that, and growing. And actually, it turns out, I have a lot of digital assets, between my photos. I have a game library. I got a lot of stuff that's now online. And I guess that's the question is, where does it all go, right?
Yeah. I mean, you look at it, right, and you've got almost everything has moved to a digital account in some way, right? Even your mortgage or more traditional bank accounts, right, typically have a username and password. But when you look at planning for those, it looks very different from planning for the photos that you have online that you mentioned, right? And a lot of that more treasured memory piece, which is certainly very valid, and you can't necessarily put a price tag on it. But then next to that is going to be all the digital assets that only exist in the digital world, right? Cryptocurrency, NFTs, all these new assets that our traditional estate planning hasn't even really caught up to in a lot of cases yet.
Yeah, Visa just bought an NFT for like 150,000. So, I don't know if this is the next Beanie Baby fad or what, but still,
they're really expensive Beanie Babies. That's all I'm gonna say.
Right. But still, if Visa buys one for 150, then maybe there's something to it. But Easynet, how did you come up with the idea?
So when I was in my 20s, I sadly had to take over the estate for my father-in-law who had had an aneurysm. And
Sorry.
yeah, and while he lived, his brain was just never the same. And the problem was he was the sole caretaker at the time for his 88-year-old mother. So it was his life and grandma's life all in one fell swoop on the shoulders of my husband and I. That was, obviously difficult, challenging. Well, you fast forward, and it was about 3 years ago, I watched my mom go through it with her mom and her dad in the same year. And that's really when it struck me just how challenging of a process this is and how much room there is for improvement. And especially as everything has moved to a digital world, it's basically making this huge portion of your assets invisible and inaccessible to your loved ones if you don't plan ahead.
Fascinating. Well, it doesn't sound like there's anything easy about Easynet getting started, that is. But now that you're really off the ground and running, well, tell me what's next for Easynet.
So, obviously, digital estate planning is just kind of hitting the vernacular in general, right? I've started to see just in the last 6 months a big upswing in the number of news articles about it, number of people talking about it. It's all of a sudden starting to, and we knew it was going to happen, right? We started working on this in 2018, but coming into 2021, it's like, oh, people are all of a sudden going to start realizing that this is a huge problem. And of course, there have been some other companies that have shot up, during COVID, as more people recognize this is a problem. Where we're laser focused is being the easiest and the most seamless to use, because I think that's ultimately what's going to create the most value for these families and ensure that the information that's there is up to date and is current, and that your loved ones really do have what they need to be able to deal with things if anything happens. But in the meantime, also making life easier for you as the day goes on. So and that's why we approached it via SaaS model instead of any other model, because it has to be something that you're already using day to day for it to really have the same level of value, if that makes sense.
That does. Well, tell me, what about the challenges that you faced and, getting this website and application and everything working? I mean, it must have been a total switch from what you were doing before to this, right?
Yeah. So I was in e-learning prior to this, so selling online training courses to businesses. So it's very different. And a lot of the challenges that we've faced have just been in terms of, as anyone who's designed in SaaS knows, the easier you try to make it for your client and the more seamless that their experience is, typically on the back end, the more complicated it has been to make it that way. Because it's relatively easy to code something that requires someone to come in and manually enter everything. It's another thing to make a service or a tool that allows you to automate a lot of that and takes the heavy lifting off of your user. But what that does is that puts it on us to make sure that it's all working right and functioning the way it needs to be.
Well, if you had 3 tips for an up and coming, think like somebody graduating from, university, and they want to build a SaaS app, what are 3 tips that you would pass along to them?
The first one is go talk to your users and figure out how they're going to use it. That's going to be first and foremost, right? Design for the people that are going to be using your SaaS product. The second one would be, I heard this earlier today. I was on a call. We're in Mass Challenge Accelerator right now, which is a startup accelerator. And a guy was talking about how he would go meet with people and ask them how much money they had in their pocket. And then he would take whatever they had and basically give them some quantity of his SaaS product in the future for whatever money they had, which would just crack me up. But it's like, if you get $20 from every single person you meet, right? At least you start, well, not only does it add up, but you can claim them as a paying customer, right? Rather than, so many companies that are out there, they'll adopt the Field of Dreams model, the if you build it, they will come. And we all know that doesn't always work. So that would be two things. The third one, let's see, as fast as you can, build kind of your minimum viable product, right? Your MVP, if you will, and then get it in the hands of some users and let them beat it up a little bit and then iterate. Because the faster you can get your tool in the hands of the people that are going to use it, and then you start to iterate and you start to make it better, that's a whole lot better than coding in a vacuum and thinking how your clients are going to use it. Speaking for personal experience, one of the things that we did, we're like, okay, we're building this product for people that didn't necessarily grow up with technology. They're going to want a step-by-step wizard that walks them through, okay, here's step 1 and I complete step 1, and now I go to step 2 and I complete step 2, and then I go to step 3 and complete step 3. And that's how we launched it, and very quickly realized everybody was skipping it and just going straight to the product, because even in these people who are in their 60s and their 70s, they're so used to the Apple design kind of, just go do it and figure it out as you go, that we had to go back and reframe and refigure that all out. So
yeah,
there's my 3 tips. I hope that's helpful.
That's good. I do remember something similar. We had designed this beautiful form where you could go, next, and it's like 1 or 2 questions per page, and And we spent a lot of time, you know, because every page, right? We spent a lot of time building that. And I remember the feedback we got immediately after launch was, can't we just stick it all on one very long page and be done with it? And we were like, man, if they
We're
had
like, well,
told us
that would have
that,
saved a lot of time and energy and development.
yeah, we could have done that in like a day and been like, next, you know, not spend, you know, 2 weeks building that next finish type of form. So yeah, it is very important to, I think, even get graphics in front of a customer and say, is this what is something that you would use?
Right. Even maybe
That,
even before it actually works at all, you know, to be able to put some kind of a visual mock-up in front of somebody and be like, okay, do you understand what this is doing? Do you understand how it's going to work? Does this work the way you think it should?
yeah, and that's just because graphics are easy to make, you know, the
Yeah.
coding is, but super challenging, very true. And there's a lot of people now entering, especially with the pandemic. One thing I heard is a lot of people just took the training to become developers or, you know, graphic artists or something. So a lot of people have taken that left turn to get into STEM, which is great.
It
You
is
know,
awesome.
this industry certainly needs more people, not less. I read somewhere that just even in the cybersecurity space, we only have something like 3 million workers or something like that globally.
Wow.
And that's an industry that needs like 20.
Yeah.
So, and like next year, we're already behind by a lot, not by a little. So certainly this whole industry is just exploding. So, but that said, I mean, I know that you've been growing at the company. What other last kind of thoughts or tips or that sort of thing would you offer to other founders?
Other founders, I would say, start asking for help early and often, right? And that goes for both the people that you're building for, but then there are so many resources that are out there, so many great books and accelerators and people that are willing to help you and give you that hand up and share their knowledge. I think it's impossible to be a startup founder these days and not be on Twitter and following a lot of those people, because it's just, you know, it's these little nuggets and little tweet storms and that kind of stuff where you're just absorbing more and more information as you go. But also, you know, I think that it can be easy to spend so much time on your startup that it comes at the expense of your entire life outside of your startup. And while that may seem that you're moving it forward faster, which in some ways maybe you are, you know, it depends. You know, a lot of times you will have those fits and spurts where you're working 18 hours a day for a period of time. But in the grand scheme of things, if you don't take those moments, if you don't follow Arlen Hamilton, she's fantastic. She's on Twitter. Arlen was here, I think is her Twitter handle. And she just posted something recently about how, you know, the best ideas in her company have shown up when she takes a moment to decompress and let her imagination kind of go a little wild. And I'm sure we're all familiar with Harry Potter and that story, right? Where J.K. Rowling was on a train with nothing to do. And that's, you know, that's when her brain started working and started coming up with the entire plot line for Harry Potter. So for founders, especially, I think it's important to recognize that you can burn out and you can lose focus and you can not get the ideas that you want to get if you're pushing too hard all the time. Which can seem counterintuitive, but there it is, right? You got to give your brain a chance to rest, and especially in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah,
our brains
sure.
are dealing with a lot. So
A lot of, I mean, yeah, with the school and everything else, I'm with you there.
yeah.
But yeah, work-life balance, just even in general, work-life balance is super duper important. You know, I remember back in my early days, I would do the 20-hour days way too long. But now I try to have at least one day off where I'm with my family and or writing a book or just doing something other than, you know, trying to solve some of these complex problems. So that way it's just, like you say, it's that decompression time and you'll stumble across an idea that'll save you time. Cloudflare happened in one of those, and now they're a billion-dollar company.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, if people want to find out more about Easynet and to get in touch with you, how can they do so?
If they want to get in touch with me, my LinkedIn is probably the easiest way. And so my name is Erin, Erin, and last name is McCune, McCune. I think there's only a couple of us on LinkedIn. The other one is in the payment space. So if you're on the payment one, it's the wrong one. Go to the other one.
Right.
But to check out Easynet, you can just go to easynet.com. And again, that's EASEENET.com. So thanks, Jefferson. Appreciate it.
Brilliant. Well, it was fantastic to have you on the show. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much.
Yeah. Have a great day. Take care.